The Galactic Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of cycles. Its member species were advanced beyond imagination. Ships faster than light, weapons that could destroy entire planets, and intelligence that spanned galaxies. The Council's job was simple: maintain order, manage conflicts, and make sure no species broke the rules of galactic law. And yet, for the first time in its long history, the Council faced something it had never expected: humans. The humans arrived quietly, in a single starship that looked almost ordinary. Its hull was simple, not covered with shields or strange energy fields. Its engines were slower than the Council's smallest vessels. The aliens who first detected it laughed at the sight. "A primitive craft," said Ambassador Krill of the Zarnak species. "How amusing. They will be easy to control." But as the ship entered Council space, those same aliens realized something that made them uneasy. The humans did not stop. They did not signal for permission. They did not follow the rules. They simply moved forward, straight toward the Council's central station. The Council convened immediately. In the grand hall of shimmering light and floating platforms, hundreds of alien representatives gathered. Some had 10 arms, others had no visible eyes, and some floated like clouds of energy. All of them were curious and many were nervous. "The humans approach," said High Chancellor Valen, her voice echoing through the hall. "Our intelligence reports say they are few in number and primitive, but they are bold. They have ignored our protocols completely. What should we do?" Ambassador Krill snorted. "Boldness is nothing. They will panic when we show our strength. We should summon them for diplomacy. They will beg for mercy." Others nodded in agreement. They imagined humans groveling before their technology and knowledge. None expected what came next. The human ship entered the central docking field. It did not lower shields. It did not slow dramatically, and it certainly did not respond to the Council's requests for identification. Instead, a small window opened on the human ship and a human figure appeared. He was tall, wearing a simple uniform. No strange armor, no glowing symbols, nothing that screamed advanced technology. But he smiled, a confident, calm smile. "I am Captain Daniel Rains of the human starship Resolute," he said. His voice carried across the communication channel, clear and steady. "We come in peace, but we will not ask permission to enter your space. We are free and we intend to act as free beings." The Council gasped. Some aliens laughed. Some trembled. Some could not believe what they had heard. To refuse the Council's protocols was considered dangerous. To speak boldly was considered foolish. And yet here was a human, refusing to obey, refusing to ask for permission, refusing to negotiate in the way the Council expected. High Chancellor Valen straightened. Her voice was firm. "Captain Rains, you have entered Council space without authorization. You are required to follow our protocols and submit to diplomacy." "This is not a request." Rains did not bow. He did not hesitate. "With all respect, Chancellor, humans do not submit to authority they do not recognize. We do not negotiate in fear, and we do not surrender our freedom for safety. We are here to observe, learn, and interact as equals. We will not bow. We will not ask permission. We will speak honestly," the Council members whispered among themselves. They were used to negotiations, threats, and carefully worded demands. They had never faced a species that refused diplomacy outright. The humans' calm defiance was unsettling. Ambassador Krill slammed a clawed hand on his podium. "This is absurd. They are few in number. They cannot possibly resist the Council. Summon our enforcers. Show them the consequences of defiance." But High Chancellor Valen raised her hand. "Wait, let us not act hastily. Observe them first. Perhaps they are clever. Perhaps they are dangerous. Perhaps we can learn something from their behavior." The humans, meanwhile, prepared to dock. Their ship systems were simple but precise. The docking sequence was smooth, almost mechanical. The Council expected alarms, warning lights, or some form of panic from the humans. But there was none. The humans moved with confidence, as if they belonged there, as if they had every right to be in the heart of the Council. As the humans' ship docked, a door opened. Captain Rains stepped forward, followed by a small crew. They carried no weapons visible to the Council, only simple tools and personal items. Their calm and confident expressions caused unease among the Council members. "Welcome, Captain Rains," said High Chancellor Valen, trying to maintain authority. "You will explain your purpose immediately. The Council does not tolerate violations of its laws. Rains nodded respectfully. I understand, Chancellor. We do not seek conflict. We seek knowledge. We seek understanding. But we will not surrender our freedom or compromise our principles. We will speak honestly and we will act as equals. Ambassador Krill muttered under his breath. Equality? These beings are fools. They cannot understand power. They cannot survive against us. Yet even as he spoke, he noticed something strange. Humans did not tremble in fear. Humans did not hesitate. Humans moved with purpose, confidence, and courage. In hundreds of years, no species had ever faced the Council with such calm defiance. The Council prepared for the first session of talks. A grand chamber, larger than any palace in the galaxy, had been set. The aliens took their seats on floating platforms, each representing their species' power, technology, and influence. Humans were seated at the center in a simple circle. No platforms, no shields, no fancy devices. The first discussion began. Council representatives asked questions expecting fear, hesitation, or bargaining. Instead, Captain Rains answered each question clearly, honestly, and without flinching. When asked why humans had entered Council space without authorization, he replied, "We are explorers. We value freedom and knowledge. We do not act out of aggression. But we do not bow to authority we do not recognize. We act as equals because we believe all intelligent beings deserve respect." Some aliens whispered in amazement. Others bristled with anger. One representative, a large insectoid being named Qatar, snapped, "You dare challenge the Council? Do you not know who we are? The Council commands the galaxy." Rains looked at Qatar calmly. "We know who you are. We also know that true respect is earned, not demanded. Humans do not fear power. We respect courage, intelligence, and fairness. That is how we measure others, not by titles or weapons." A tense silence filled the chamber. No one had spoken this way before. The Council had always expected compliance, negotiation, and flattery. But here was a species that refused to comply, refused to negotiate in the usual way, and refused to be intimidated. High Chancellor Velan observed quietly. She saw something that the other Council members had not noticed. Humans were not weak. They were not foolish. Their simplicity, honesty, and courage gave them a strange kind of strength. Perhaps, she thought, these humans were unlike any other species in the galaxy. The first meeting ended without agreement, without submission, and without conflict. Humans stood their ground, spoke honestly, and left the Council members questioning everything they thought they knew about power. As the humans returned to their ship, Council members whispered to one another. "They are foolish," said Krill. "They will not survive in this galaxy." "Perhaps," said Valen softly, "but they may also change it forever." Captain Rains and his crew returned to the Resolute, calm and unshaken. They did not celebrate. They did not fear. They simply prepared for the next step, knowing that the Council would test them, challenge them, and try to control them. And they would face it all as humans always did, with courage, honesty, and determination. Outside, the stars shone bright. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders, dangers, and ancient civilizations. Yet somewhere deep in the Council chambers, doubt had begun to spread. The humans had arrived. They refused diplomacy. And for the first time in history, the Galactic Council had met a species it could not easily control. The stage was set. A new chapter in galactic history was beginning, and the humans, with their quiet confidence and unyielding spirit, were at the center of it. The Council would soon realize that humans were not just explorers. They were a force to be reckoned with. A species that would challenge tradition, defy expectations, and remind the galaxy that courage, freedom, and honesty could sometimes be more powerful than any weapon. And so the humans' journey began. Not with fear, not with negotiation, but with a simple truth. They were free, and they would remain so, no matter what the galaxy tried to force upon them. The humans' arrival had shaken the Galactic Council more than anyone would admit. In the days after the first meeting, debates raged across the chambers. Many Council members saw humans as a minor annoyance, a primitive species that could be crushed or ignored. Others felt unease, an unfamiliar respect, or even fear. High Chancellor Velan called a special session to discuss the humans. The Grand Hall was filled with representatives, some floating, some walking, some hovering silently above the ground. They argued in their own languages, their voices overlapping in a symphony of tension. "We cannot allow them to remain uncontrolled," said Ambassador Krill, his insectoid mandibles clicking angrily. "They have no shields, no weapons worthy of notice, and yet they do not fear us. That is dangerous. We must test them." Phelan nodded, agreed. "But testing does not mean destruction. We will challenge them in ways that measure their intellect, their courage, and their adaptability. Let us see if they are truly capable of navigating the galaxy as they claim." And so, the Council designed a series of tests. Some were political, challenging humans to negotiate with multiple factions without offending them. Others were technological, requiring humans to solve complex puzzles or operate advanced machinery. And some were strategic, simulations of battles that could occur in real life. The humans were informed politely, though firmly, that the Council wished to observe their skills. Captain Daniel Rains and his crew accepted without fear. They knew these tests would be difficult. They also knew the Council expected them to fail, and humans had never been motivated by others' expectations. The first test was political. Several Council species sent representatives with hidden agendas, hoping to confuse or trap the humans. The humans' task was simple in theory: negotiate a trade agreement that satisfied all parties. In practice, it was far more difficult. The representatives argued, interrupted, and tried to manipulate. One alien even attempted to secretly alter the terms when no human was watching. But the humans were observant. Captain Rains noticed the inconsistencies, and instead of accusing the aliens directly, he proposed a transparent solution. "Let us write down every term together," he suggested. "Let all parties see the agreement. If any change is needed, it will be discussed openly. We will honor honesty, not deception." The Council members watching were stunned. No species had ever responded to deceit with fairness and clarity. Most would have attempted trickery in return or demanded submission. But the humans' approach was simple, direct, and effective. By the end of the political test, every alien representative had agreed to the terms. Captain Rains had done what the Council believed impossible. He had negotiated successfully without fear, manipulation, or compromise of principles. Some Council members whispered that humans might actually be clever, in a way the galaxy had not seen before. The second test was technological. A device of Council origin, a complex puzzle meant to assess intelligence and adaptability, was presented to the humans. It was a cube of shifting layers, lights, and energy conduits, designed to be nearly impossible to solve without advanced alien knowledge. The humans examined the device calmly. They observed its patterns, shared ideas among themselves, and experimented carefully. Unlike other species, they did not panic when the puzzle seemed unsolvable. They did not attempt to hack or force the device. Instead, they analyzed, communicated, and adapted. After hours of careful work, a small click sounded. The cube opened, revealing a glowing core. The Council observers gasped. No species had solved this puzzle in living memory, and yet these humans had done it with patience, teamwork, and ingenuity. Ambassador Krill growled. "This is unacceptable. They are primitive. How can they outperform our most advanced minds?" High Chancellor Valen only watched, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps intelligence comes in forms we do not expect," she said quietly. The third test was the most difficult, a military simulation. The humans were placed in a holographic battle scenario where two alien factions were at war. Their task was to resolve the conflict while minimizing harm. The Council expected them to panic or fail, as most species did when confronted with strategy under pressure. The humans studied the holograms carefully. Captain Rains did not rush. He observed patterns, predicted movements, and suggested creative solutions. Instead of fighting, he proposed alliances, feints, and tactical retreats. His crew acted decisively, implementing strategies with precision. The simulation ended with both factions reaching a truce, an outcome the Council had never expected. Humans had not used force to dominate. They had used intelligence, communication, and courage to achieve success. Council observers were shocked. Some could not hide their admiration. Others were angry, humiliated that a species so young had outperformed their centuries of planning. Rumors about the humans began spreading quickly. Across the galaxy, whispers reached ships, stations, and colonies. Humans were brave, clever, and unpredictable. They refused to bow, they refused to cheat, and they refused to negotiate through fear. And yet they succeeded where others failed. Back on the Resolute, Captain Rains and his crew discussed the tests. They knew more challenges would come, but they were confident. "They are testing us because they want to control us," said Lieutenant Maralorn. "But they cannot. We will act as humans always do." With honesty and courage, Rains nodded. "Exactly. We do not fear their tests. We learn from them, we adapt, and we will show them that strength is not only about weapons or power. Strength is about heart, intelligence, and resolve." Meanwhile, in the council chambers, debates grew heated. Some members argued that humans were too dangerous to allow free movement in council space. Others began to question the methods of the council itself. How could such a small species, primitive in appearance, inspire such confidence and influence? The most surprising reaction came from a few smaller species, often ignored by the council. They began observing humans closely, studying their methods and even seeking their guidance. These species saw humans as a symbol of courage and independence, a beacon of hope in a galaxy ruled by fear and hierarchy. Ambassador Krill, frustrated and exhausted, slammed his clawed hand on the podium. "They cannot be allowed to continue. They will ruin everything the Council has built. We must force them to submit." High Chancellor Valen remained calm. "And if we cannot? Perhaps we are looking at a new model of strength. One that values courage, ingenuity, and honesty. Perhaps we have underestimated the humans." The humans, however, did not concern themselves with politics. They focused on exploration, learning, and proving their principles through action. Each test, each challenge only strengthened their resolve. They were not trying to prove themselves to the Council. They were being themselves. As days passed, the Council realized something unsettling. Humans were not predictable. They did not fear punishment. They did not seek reward. They acted according to their principles, and in doing so, they achieved what others could not. The testing period ended, but the Council knew this was only the beginning. The humans had passed every challenge, solved every problem, and demonstrated a unique combination of courage, intelligence, and teamwork. More importantly, they refused to bend to authority, refused to negotiate through fear, and refused to compromise their values. In private, some council members whispered, "These humans, they could change everything." High Chancellor Valen looked out of the chamber's window at the stars. "Yes," she said softly, almost to herself. "They may not only survive in our galaxy, they may lead it in ways we cannot yet imagine. And somewhere in the shadows," Ambassador Krill muttered, "or they may destroy us all." The humans, unaware of the fears and debates swirling around them, continued their work. They repaired minor damages on their ship, explored nearby planets, and maintained their routines. Their calm, steady determination frustrated some, inspired others, and terrified a few. Captain Rains watched the stars from the bridge. "We are small in this galaxy," he said quietly, "but courage and honesty can shine brighter than any weapon or title. The Council may not understand us yet, but we will continue. We will act as humans always do, with heart, with mind, and with courage." And so the humans remained a puzzle, a challenge, and an inspiration. The Galactic Council had expected a species that would submit, negotiate, and beg for mercy. Instead, they found humans who refused to bow, who refused to fear, and who refused to be predictable. The galaxy would soon learn that humans were unlike any other species. They were not the strongest by technology, nor the fastest by reflex, nor the oldest by age. But they were fearless, clever, and true to themselves. And in a galaxy that valued power above all else, that was a force no one had anticipated. The stage was set for further tests, greater challenges, and even more daring adventures. And the humans, with their quiet confidence, were ready for all of it. For the first time in history, the Council had met a species it could not easily control, and that species was human. The humans' success in the Council's tests had caused unease, even fear, among the galaxy's most powerful species. What was meant to be a series of simple evaluations had turned into a demonstration of human ingenuity, courage, and teamwork. Yet many members of the Galactic Council were not ready to accept this truth. Ambassador Krill's frustration had grown. "We cannot allow them to continue untested. They defy authority. They outsmart our systems and they inspire other species. They must be controlled." High Chancellor Valen sighed. She knew that humans were capable, but she also understood the Council's desire to assert dominance. "Force will not work," she warned. "They are not like any other species we have encountered. but we can observe how they handle greater challenges. That will reveal their true strength. Thus began the next phase, a series of escalating challenges designed to push the humans to their limits. The first challenge was subtle. Certain council members tried to intimidate the humans through threats and displays of power. A fleet of heavily armed ships moved through nearby space, their weapons glowing ominously. Council representatives sent messages warning the humans that defiance would have consequences. Captain Daniel Rains and his crew did not flinch. "They are testing our courage, not our strength," Rains said quietly. "We will not act out of fear. We will act as humans always do, with reason and determination." When the first messages arrived, Lieutenant Mara Lorne read them aloud to the crew. "Threats," she said, shaking her head. "They think fear will make us bow. They don't understand humans," Rains nodded. "We will respond with honesty. We will not provoke, but we will not submit. Let them see who we truly are." The council expected panic. They expected the humans to retreat or comply. Instead, the humans maintained their course, continuing exploration and preparation. They repaired minor ship malfunctions, studied alien signals, and monitored the council's movements. Their calm confidence unsettled many council members more than any weapon could. Next came a test of diplomacy under pressure. The council arranged for the humans to mediate a dispute between two alien species that had been on the brink of war for decades. The species were fierce, proud, and unwilling to compromise. Most council representatives assumed the humans would fail, or worse, trigger conflict. The humans listened carefully to both sides. They spoke honestly, asking questions and seeking understanding rather than control. When one species attempted to mislead them, the humans did not accuse or threaten. Instead, they proposed a transparent plan that allowed each faction to voice their concerns openly. By the end of the mediation, the two species had agreed to a tentative truce. Council members were stunned. They had expected the humans to fail or panic, yet here was a species that could defuse centuries of tension through reason and courage. Ambassador Krill could barely contain his anger. "This is absurd," he shouted during a council meeting. "A species so young, so primitive, has outmaneuvered us politically, technologically, and strategically. They must be stopped." High Chancellor Valen remained calm. "Or perhaps," she said quietly, "they are showing us a new way to lead. They act without fear, with honesty, and with intelligence. That is a strength we have rarely seen." But not all challenges were diplomatic. Some council members tried to trap the humans with simulations of conflict and danger. They set up ambushes in remote sectors, hoping to see if the humans would panic or surrender. In one scenario, the humans encountered an asteroid field filled with automated defense systems. The council had assumed they would be destroyed, but the humans worked together, navigating carefully, predicting the patterns of the defenses and using their limited technology creatively. They emerged unscathed, much to the council's shock. "Remarkable," said a smaller species observer. "They have no shields, no heavy weapons, and yet they survive where others fail." Rains shrugged. "We do not fight recklessly. We observe, plan, and act. That is how humans survive." Another test involved direct confrontation with a council task force. Hundreds of ships surrounded the Resolute, signaling for immediate surrender. The humans faced no fear, no hesitation. Instead, they used clever maneuvers and quick thinking to avoid detection and conflict. They communicated with the task force, appealing to logic rather than force. After hours of careful maneuvering, the task force disengaged, unable to force compliance. The humans had refused to bow, refused to fight unnecessarily, and refused to be intimidated, and they had succeeded. In the council chambers, tension rose. Many species were furious that a primitive species could evade and outsmart their most sophisticated forces. Others were quietly impressed, seeing in humans a model of courage and independence that their own societies lacked. High Chancellor Valen observed quietly. She noticed that humans did not seek dominance, did not act out of fear, and did not betray their principles. Yet they achieved outcomes no other species could. It was a form of power the Council had never considered. Meanwhile, the humans continued to explore nearby star systems. They studied planets, collected data, and recorded new discoveries. Their curiosity and courage inspired some Council species, who began to see them as a symbol of hope and integrity. Even when provoked, the humans responded calmly. When a Council vessel attempted to block their path, Rains communicated clearly. We do not seek conflict. We will not surrender. But we will continue our journey peacefully. The vessel hesitated, unsure how to respond. The humans' refusal to fear or bow was unlike anything the Council had seen. It was not aggression. It was courage, patience, and intelligence combined. Rumors of the humans' exploits spread quickly. Across the galaxy, species whispered about the small crew that refused authority, solved impossible problems, and navigated danger with ingenuity. Some admired them. Some feared them. All were curious. Back on the Resolute, the crew reflected on their experiences. They want to control us, said Lieutenant Lorne. They want us to act their way, think their way, even fear them. But we won't, we can't, that is not who we are. Rains nodded. Exactly. We act according to our principles. That is our strength. The galaxy may not understand us yet, but our actions speak louder than their threats or their rules. The humans' calm defiance began to have an unexpected effect. Some smaller species, often ignored or oppressed by the Council, began to watch them closely. They admired the humans' courage, honesty, and independence. Quietly, these species started emulating human behavior in their own ways, seeking fairness and cooperation rather than fear and submission. Ambassador Krill, growing increasingly desperate, proposed extreme measures. If diplomacy and intimidation fail, then we must destroy them, he argued during a council meeting. A species that refuses authority is dangerous. They will inspire rebellion and chaos. High Chancellor Valen considered this carefully. Destruction is unnecessary, she said. We must observe further. Humans are not reckless. They do not seek dominance. Their strength lies in courage, intelligence, and integrity. That is a challenge we are not used to. The humans themselves remained unaware of much of this debate. They focused on exploration, learning, and their mission of understanding the galaxy. They did not act out of fear or ambition. They acted as humans always did, with honesty, determination, and courage. The escalation phase had shown something remarkable. Humans were not predictable. They did not fear power. They solved problems through intelligence and teamwork. They inspired admiration and unease in equal measure. The Council began to realize that humans were unlike any species they had encountered. They were not the fastest, the oldest, or the most technologically advanced, but they were clever, brave, and principled. And in a galaxy dominated by fear, control, and hierarchy, that made them extraordinary. As the Resolute sailed through the stars, Captain Rains reflected on the Council's response. They will try more tests, he said. They will try to control us, intimidate us, or manipulate us. But we will continue to act as humans always do. With courage, intelligence, and integrity, the crew nodded, ready for whatever came next. They knew the Council would escalate further, but they were prepared. Fear was not part of their journey. Honesty and determination were. The galaxy, vast and full of dangers, had met humans who refused to bow, refused to fear, and refused to follow the expected rules. And for the first time, many species began to wonder. Perhaps humans were not the Council's problem. They were the Council's challenge. Somewhere in the chambers, High Chancellor Valen watched quietly. These humans, she said softly, they may not only survive, they may change everything. The stage was set for the next phase. Greater challenges, cleverer traps, and unexpected dangers awaited. And the humans, steady and unyielding, were ready to face them all. For the first time in galactic history, a species had refused diplomacy, refused intimidation, and refused to be controlled. And the galaxy would never be the same. Weeks had passed since the humans had first arrived in Council space. Each challenge, test, and confrontation had revealed their courage, intelligence, and unwavering principles. Yet for the Galactic Council, the question remained, who were these humans and why did they refuse to bow to authority like every other species? High Chancellor Valen called a special session to review the humans' actions. The Grand Chamber buzzed with whispers and speculation. Council members debated furiously. Some demanded immediate control, fearing the humans' influence. Others were quietly impressed by their ingenuity and calm defiance. Ambassador Krill slammed his clawed hands on his podium. Chancellor, they have passed every test, avoided every trap, and even mediated disputes that have lasted centuries. If we do not act, they will inspire others and weaken the Council's control over the galaxy. Valen raised a hand to quiet the hall. Control is not our only measure of strength, she said calmly. We must understand them before we decide. They do not act recklessly. They act with intelligence and courage. Perhaps they have something to teach us. Meanwhile, on the Resolute, Captain Daniel Rains and his crew prepared for the next phase of their journey. They had learned that the Council would continue to observe and test them, but they had no intention of compromising their principles. Their mission was not to dominate, not to conquer, but to explore, understand, and share knowledge where they could. Their next encounter was arranged by the Council. Several representatives from diverse species had requested a meeting. They did not demand submission. Instead, they wanted to understand why humans acted as they did, and what humans sought in the galaxy. Captain Rains entered the chamber first, followed by his small crew. The aliens were wary, but they respected the humans' courage and calm demeanor. Rains spoke plainly. "We do not seek to dominate or conquer," he said. "We do not bow to authority we do not recognize. Humans value freedom, honesty, and fairness. We act according to our principles, and we treat others as we would like to be treated. That is our mission. We explore, we learn, and we cooperate when it is right. That is all." The council members were silent. They had expected arrogance or fear, but instead, they heard truth delivered simply and clearly. Some species were struck by the humans' honesty. Others were unsettled by their refusal to fear or obey. One small species, barely known outside its own star system, spoke first. "Your words, they are unlike any we have heard. Most species negotiate through fear or threats. You speak as equals without pretense. Why do you act this way?" Rains smiled calmly. "Because it is how humans survive and thrive. We do not hide from danger. We do not cheat to win. We work together, we think creatively, and we act honestly. That is our strength. That is why we do not bow to the Council. We do not need to. We act according to what is right, not what is demanded." A wave of quiet murmurs passed through the chamber. Some council members felt admiration. Others felt unease. For the first time, they realized that power could exist without weapons or intimidation. Humans demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and honesty could shape outcomes just as effectively as fleets of warships or advanced technology. The meeting continued. Rains and his crew answered questions patiently. They explained how humans solved problems, navigated danger, and mediated conflicts without relying on fear or force. They spoke of their principles, their curiosity, and their desire to learn and share knowledge. Slowly, the Council began to understand something remarkable. Humans were not trying to dominate, manipulate, or challenge the Council for personal gain. Their goal was simple: freedom, cooperation, and fairness. High Chancellor Veylan observed quietly. She had watched countless species rise and fall, all driven by ambition, fear, or the lust for power. Yet humans operated differently. Their strength was in their heart, their mind, and their courage. They refused to submit, yet they did not seek conquest. They challenged authority not for rebellion but to uphold truth and fairness. Ambassador Krill, growing frustrated, muttered, "They are clever, yes, but they are still few in number. They cannot survive against the full might of the Council if they continue this defiance." Veylan shook her head. "Perhaps they do not need to. They act in ways we have never anticipated. Their influence is not through force, it is through example." In the following weeks, humans demonstrated their philosophy in action. On a contested planet, two species were engaged in a territorial dispute that had lasted decades. Previous attempts at negotiation had failed, and the Council had predicted violence. Captain Rains and his crew arrived quietly, observed the situation, and suggested a solution that no one had considered. Instead of siding with either faction, they proposed a shared system of governance with clear communication, mutual responsibilities, and fair distribution of resources. The alien factions were skeptical. They had never trusted outsiders, but the humans were patient. They listened, they explained, and they demonstrated fairness in every decision. Slowly, the factions began to cooperate. The humans did not demand obedience or loyalty. They offered understanding, fairness, and a practical solution. By the end of the conflict, the planet was no longer a battleground. The aliens had begun to trust each other, and many whispered that the humans' method was remarkable. News of this success spread quickly. Across the galaxy, whispers circulated about the humans who refused to bow, refused to fear, and yet achieved outcomes no other species could. Some council members were uneasy. Others were inspired. High Chancellor Valon convened a private meeting with several senior representatives. "We must reconsider how we view humans," she said. "They are not like any species we have encountered. They are few in number, yet their actions ripple across the galaxy. They inspire, they solve problems, and they uphold principles we often ignore. Perhaps we have underestimated them," Ambassador Krill growled. "Underestimated? They are a threat. A small crew of humans could destabilize the Council if we do not act." Valon shook her head. "Not through force. Through example. Their strength is not in domination, it is in courage, intelligence, and integrity. That is what makes them dangerous to those who rely on fear and control, but it is also what makes them remarkable." The humans themselves remained focused on their mission. They repaired their ship, explored new systems, and prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. They were aware of the Council's observation, but they did not act for approval or fear. Their actions were guided by principle and curiosity. Captain Rains reflected on their journey so far. "We have passed tests and defied expectations. But our mission is not about proving ourselves. It is about being human, acting with honesty, courage, and intelligence." "That is enough," Lieutenant Lorne nodded. "And yet the galaxy watches. They may learn from us or they may try to stop us. Either way, we continue." As the Resolute moved through the stars, some council members began to take note. Smaller species, often oppressed or ignored, started seeking human guidance, inspired by their courage and fairness. Larger species who had relied on power and fear were uneasy. The humans' example threatened to challenge centuries of hierarchy and control. High Chancellor Valon observed this quietly. She realized that humans were not only surviving, they were changing the perception of strength across the galaxy. Their principles, courage, and ingenuity were influencing others in ways the Council could not control. Ambassador Krill muttered angrily, "They are unstoppable. If we do not act soon, they will reshape the galaxy. And they do not even seek power." Valon smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is exactly why they are powerful. They act without fear, without ambition for dominance, and with unwavering honesty. That is a strength few species understand." The revelation was clear. Humans were not the Council's enemies. They were a new model of strength. A species that demonstrated courage, intelligence, and fairness could change the galaxy, not through weapons or titles, but through example. The stage was set for the next phase of the humans' journey. Greater challenges awaited, but humans were ready. They would continue to explore, to learn, and to act according to their principles. And in doing so, they would inspire, challenge, and reshape the galaxy in ways no one had anticipated. For the first time, the Galactic Council understood that humans were not to be controlled or feared in the usual way. Their refusal to submit, their honesty, and their courage had revealed a new form of power, one that could change the galaxy forever. And the humans, steady and unyielding, continued their journey, prepared for whatever lay ahead. Months had passed since the humans first arrived in Council space. Their calm defiance, intelligence, and courage had already caused waves of discussion, admiration, and unease across the galaxy. Yet no one could predict the full impact of their presence. On the Resolute, Captain Daniel Rains stood at the bridge, looking out at the stars. His crew moved efficiently, performing routine checks and minor repairs. Despite the increasing attention of the Galactic Council, the humans remained focused on their mission: exploration, understanding, and cooperation. Lieutenant Mara Lorne spoke quietly. "Captain, the Council is watching more closely than ever. Some species are learning from us while others are clearly plotting how to stop us." Rains nodded. "We expected that. But we do not act to impress or provoke. We act because it is right. That is what makes humans strong." Meanwhile, the Council convened a meeting that would change history. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Grand Chamber. There was tension in the air. Some feared that humans' influence might weaken centuries of authority, while others recognized a unique opportunity for positive change. High Chancellor Valon addressed the assembly. "We have observed the humans for many cycles. They have passed every challenge, defied every expectation, and demonstrated a strength unlike any species we have known. It is not a strength of force or intimidation. It is the strength of courage, honesty, and intelligence. We must consider how to integrate this example into our governance." Ambassador Krill growled, "Integration? They are a threat." They refuse to submit and they inspire others. They will disrupt the Council's order if we do not act. Valen responded calmly. They have already changed the galaxy through example, whether we wish it or not. Fighting them would only demonstrate fear. Instead, we can learn from them, and perhaps grow stronger ourselves. The humans invited to attend the meeting entered the chamber quietly. They were not given seats of honor or special treatment, yet all eyes turned toward them. Captain Rain stepped forward and spoke plainly. We do not seek power. We do not seek to control or dominate. We act according to our principles. We explore, we learn, and we cooperate when it is right. But we will not compromise our honesty, our courage, or our freedom. That is all humans ask. The chance to act as equals and the chance to show that strength comes in many forms. There was a long silence. Council members, accustomed to negotiation through fear or status, were struck by the clarity and simplicity of his words. Some were inspired. Others were unsure how to respond. A representative from a smaller, previously ignored species spoke up. We have watched humans act. They do not cheat, they do not hide, and they do not bow to fear, and yet they solve problems that we have failed to resolve for centuries. If their ways could guide us, perhaps we too could improve. Slowly, discussions shifted. Council members began to debate not how to control humans, but how humans' principles might benefit the galaxy. Humans had refused to follow the expected rules, yet they had achieved far more than any species had thought possible. Ambassador Krill continued to object. They are unpredictable. They cannot be allowed to roam freely. They will destabilize everything. Valen shook her head. Unpredictable? Or inspiring? They act without fear, without hidden agendas, and without desire for dominance. That is precisely why they succeed. That is the model we should study. The humans themselves took no pride in this debate. They spoke only when asked and always with honesty. Their calm and confident demeanor continued to make council members uncomfortable. And yet, slowly, some began to see humans as a symbol of a better way. Strength through courage, intelligence, and integrity rather than fear and control. The turning point came on a contested planet where two alien factions had been on the brink of war for decades. The Council had sent humans to mediate, expecting failure or conflict. Yet Captain Rains and his crew approached the situation with patience and fairness. They listened carefully to both sides, asking questions, clarifying concerns, and offering practical solutions. They proposed a shared system of governance, clear communication, and fair distribution of resources. Neither faction was forced to obey. They chose cooperation voluntarily. By the time the humans left the planet, it was no longer a battlefield. The factions were working together, inspired by the humans' example. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. Humans do not fight to dominate. They inspire through fairness and courage. Back in the council chambers, Valen addressed the assembly again. We have witnessed something remarkable. Humans demonstrate that true strength does not lie in fear or dominance. They show us that courage, honesty, and intelligence can achieve what force never could. We must recognize this and perhaps follow their example. Krill remained furious, but even he could not deny the results. Every challenge the humans faced had been met with success, without the use of weapons or coercion. Their influence was growing, not through power, but through principle. The Council decided to officially recognize humans as a species whose methods could serve as a model for cooperation and leadership. Humans were not granted authority, nor given special privileges, but they were acknowledged as equals, whose courage and honesty set a standard that no species could ignore. Captain Rains accepted the recognition humbly. We do not seek praise or power, he said. We act as humans always do, but if our example can inspire others, then we are grateful. That is all we hope for. From that moment, humans began to leave their mark on the galaxy. Small species sought their guidance, learning new ways to resolve conflicts and cooperate. Larger species were forced to reconsider their reliance on fear and authority. The humans' influence spread quietly, steadily, and effectively, through action, principle, and courage. On the Resolute, the crew prepared for their next journey. We have done more than explore, Lieutenant Lorne said. We've shown that being honest and brave can change entire civilizations. Rains smiled. We've only begun. The galaxy is vast, and there are countless systems to explore, countless species to meet. And wherever we go, we will act as humans always do, with courage, integrity, and intelligence. The Council, once confident that humans would be easy to control, now faced a new reality. These humans had refused diplomacy as expected, refused to bow and refused to fear, and yet, they had achieved more than most species could hope to achieve through years of power and influence. High Chancellor Valon watched quietly as the humans departed from the Council's central station. "They are extraordinary," she said softly. "Not because they are strong in the ways we measure, but because they are strong in ways we had never imagined. They remind us that courage, honesty, and intelligence can be more powerful than fleets of warships or ancient knowledge." Ambassador Krill grumbled. "They are a challenge, and a threat. I cannot say I understand them." Valon smiled faintly. "Perhaps understanding is not required. Perhaps their example is enough. They will teach the galaxy lessons no weapon ever could." As the Resolute sailed through the stars, the humans looked forward to new discoveries, new challenges, and new opportunities to act as humans always did. Their journey was far from over, and the galaxy would never be the same. For the first time, the Galactic Council had encountered a species it could not easily control, and that species had refused diplomacy, refused fear, and refused to compromise its principles. And in doing so, humans had redefined what true strength meant in the galaxy. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of potential, mystery, and adventure. And the humans, steadfast and brave, were ready to meet it all, not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as explorers, problem solvers, and examples of courage and integrity. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. A small group of humans, guided by honesty, intelligence, and courage, could change civilizations, inspire allies, and challenge centuries of tradition, and that truth would ripple through the cosmos for generations to come. Humans were no longer just a species. They were a symbol, a living example of what it meant to act with courage, fairness, and intelligence, and the galaxy would never forget it.